Imagine it is the 14th of March, 2020. You are a 62-year-old retired engineer living in Houston, Texas. You have worked hard your entire life. You paid off your mortgage 11 years ago. Your home is a modest 3-bedroom ranch on a quiet street with a well-kept lawn and a garage that always smells faintly of motor oil. Inside your bedroom closet, behind a false panel you installed yourself, sits a fireproof safe bolted to the foundation. Inside that safe are 47 one-ounce American Gold Eagle coins. At today's price, they are worth roughly $78,000. You bought them over 15 years, a coin or two at a time, always with cash, always from different dealers, always quietly. You told no one, not your neighbor, not your brother, not even your wife, until the day she found the receipts in your desk drawer. You did this because you believed in self-reliance. You believed that if the banks failed, if the dollar cratered, if the world went sideways, you would still have something real, something you could hold, something no government could freeze, no banker could confiscate, no algorithm could erase. And on that quiet Saturday morning in March 2020, with a pandemic shutting down the country and markets falling off a cliff, you felt smart. You felt safe. You had no idea that the greatest threat to your gold was not a crashing economy, not a failing bank, not a foreign government. It was the fact that other people were about to find out it was there. If you have ever wondered why the people who hold real, physical wealth sometimes lose it faster than those who hold nothing at all, stay with me. What you're about to hear is not a theory. It is a pattern. It has happened before, and it almost always ends the same way. And if you find value in this kind of historical clarity, subscribing takes 2 seconds and keeps you ahead of what most people never see coming. 6 weeks after that quiet Saturday, our retired engineer in Houston came home from a grocery run to find his back door kicked open. The house had been ransacked, drawers pulled out, mattress flipped, closet walls punched through. The safe was gone. Not opened, gone. Whoever did it brought tools. They pried it from the foundation bolts. I dragged it across the hardwood and loaded it into a vehicle. $78,000 in gold, 15 years of disciplined saving, vanished in under 20 minutes. The police report was filed. The insurance company asked for receipts, serial numbers, photographs. He had some, not enough. His homeowner's policy covered theft of precious metals up to only $2,500, a limit buried in the fine print he had never read. He recovered almost nothing. And the worst part, the detail that made him lose sleep for months afterward, was how they knew. It turned out his wife had mentioned the gold coins to her sister during a phone call. Her sister mentioned it at a dinner party. Someone at that dinner party mentioned it to someone else. Within weeks, the information had traveled through a chain of people our engineer had never met. One of those people, or someone they told, decided to act. This is not a rare story. This is the story. And it repeats across countries, across centuries, across every class of people who have ever tried to store significant wealth inside their own walls. This video is about why keeping gold at home, something millions of people around the world do right now, carries risks that most gold owners never think about until it is too late. It is not about whether gold is a good investment. It is not about whether you should own precious metals. It is about what happens when the thing you bought to protect you becomes the very thing that puts you in danger. This is a story about information leaks, home invasions, government seizures, insurance gaps, natural disasters, and the brutal math of human behavior when desperation meets him. Opportunity. And it is backed by history that most gold dealers will never tell you. Before we go further, there is something important to understand. The reason people store gold at home is not irrational. It is rooted in a very real and very reasonable fear. Throughout history, banks have frozen accounts. Governments have seized assets. Safety deposit boxes have been drilled open by court order. People have been locked out of their own money during the exact moments they needed it most. Home storage feels like the answer to all of these problems. But it creates a completely different set of problems that are, in many cases, statistically worse. Think of it like this. Imagine you are worried about your house flooding, so you move all your furniture to the roof. You have solved the flood problem. But now your furniture is exposed to wind, rain, lightning, and theft by anyone who can climb a ladder. You traded one risk for 5 others. That is exactly what home gold storage does. It eliminates counterparty risk, which means the risk that a bank or institution fails you, but it introduces physical risk, information risk, legal risk, insurance risk, and disaster risk. And most people who store gold at home have no plan for any of them. They are standing on the roof in a thunderstorm, proud that their feet are dry. This brings us directly to the first major danger, and it is the one that has destroyed more home gold holdings than any government seizure or bank collapse in modern history. Theft, not the dramatic Hollywood kind with laser grids and masked professionals. The mundane, brutal, opportunistic kind. In the United States alone, according to the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting data, there were approximately 1 million burglaries in 2019. That number dropped slightly during the pandemic, but rebounded sharply in 2022 and 2023 in many major metro areas. The Bureau of Justice Statistics estimates that roughly 28% of burglaries involve some form of forced entry into an occupied home, meaning someone was home when the intruder came in. Now here's the critical detail. Burglars do not randomly pick houses. Studies from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, published in 2013, surveyed over 400 convicted burglars and found that the single biggest factor in target selection was information. Did they know or believe that something valuable was inside? Word of mouth, visible purchases, social media posts, even trash from packaging, all of these serve as signals. Gold owners face a unique version of this problem. Gold is the perfect target. It is small, dense, extremely valuable per ounce, untraceable once melted, and nearly impossible to recover after theft. A single 1-ounce coin, smaller than $50, is worth over $2,300 as of early 2025. A thief can carry $100,000 of gold in a coat pocket. Compare that to stealing a television, which is bulky, traceable, and worth maybe $300 at a pawn shop. Gold is the highest value, lowest risk target a burglar can find. And this is not theoretical. In December 2021, a couple in the suburbs of Melbourne, Australia, lost over 200,000 Australian dollars worth of gold bars and coins in a home invasion. The attackers knew exactly what they were looking for. They bypassed electronics, jewelry, and cash. They went straight to the bedroom safe. The couple had purchased the gold from a local dealer who, it was later alleged, had been less than careful with customer records. In February 2018, a retired businessman in the city of Naples, Italy, was tied up in his own home by 3 men who demanded he open his safe. They took gold bars worth approximately 150,000 euros. Neighbors later told reporters the man had been known in the area as someone who kept gold. The information had leaked slowly, casually, the way information always does. A comment at a cafe, a boast to a friend, a receipt left visible. Gold does not need to be advertised to be discovered. It only needs to be mentioned once to one wrong person in one unguarded moment. The safe in the closet is not a vault. It is a locked box inside a wooden house with glass windows and hollow doors, and the lock only works against people who do not know it is there. Here is something I want you to think about before we go further. If you owned $50,000 in gold right now, truly owned it, coins or bars sitting in your home, how many people in your life would know about it? Not just the people you told directly, but the people who might have overheard, might have guessed, might have noticed a delivery or a purchase. Think about that number. Drop your answer in the comments. Seriously. Because what I am about to show you next is the part of this story that most people never hear, and it changes everything. This leads to the second part of this story, and it takes us out of the realm of common crime and into the realm of government power. Because the second great danger of storing gold at home is not that a thief might take it. It is that your own government might. On the 5th of April 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102. This order made it illegal for any individual in the United States to own more than 5 ounces of gold coin, gold bullion, or gold certificates. Citizens were required to surrender their gold to the Federal Reserve by the 1st of May at a fixed price of $20.67 per ounce. After the deadline, the government revalued gold to $35 per ounce, effectively confiscating nearly 40% of the gold's value from anyone who complied. Those who did not comply faced penalties of up to $10,000 in fines, which in 1933 was the equivalent of roughly $230,000 today, or up to 10 years in prison. Now, most people think this is ancient history, something that could never happen again. But consider what happened in India on the 8th of November, 2016. Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced a sudden demonetization, which means the government declared that certain banknotes, the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, were no longer legal money. Citizens had just 50 days to deposit their old notes in banks. Chaos erupted. But the part most people outside India do not know is what followed. In the months after demonetization, Indian tax authorities dramatically increased raids on households suspected of holding undeclared gold. India has a deep cultural tradition of gold ownership. The World Gold Council estimates that Indian households hold approximately 25,000 tons of gold, more than the reserves of the United States, Germany, and Italy combined. Under Indian tax law, individuals can hold certain amounts of gold without needing to prove its origin. Up to 500 grams for a married woman, 100 grams for an unmarried woman, and 100 grams for a man. Anything above those limits can be questioned, and if you cannot show receipts or inheritance records, it can be seized as undeclared wealth and taxed heavily, sometimes at rates exceeding 60%. Between 2016 and 2018, Indian enforcement agencies conducted thousands of raids and seizures. Some of these were on wealthy individuals suspected of tax evasion, but many were on ordinary middle-class families who had simply inherited gold from their grandparents and kept it at home in a cupboard or under a mattress. They had no receipts, they had no documentation, and they had no legal defense. The gold was confiscated. The point is not that every government will seize gold. The point is that storing gold at home makes you uniquely vulnerable if they ever decide to try. When gold sits in an allocated vault in a foreign jurisdiction, moving it or seizing it requires international legal cooperation, court orders across borders, and layers of bureaucratic friction. When gold sits in your bedroom closet, it requires only a knock on the door. Confiscation is not a lock being picked. It is a door being opened from the inside, because you had no choice. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the third danger of home gold storage is the one that almost nobody talks about, and it has nothing to do with crime or government. It is nature. On the 29th of August, 2005, Hurricane Katrina made landfall along the Gulf Coast of the United States. It was one of the deadliest and most destructive natural disasters in American history. Over 1,800 people died. Property damage exceeded $125 billion. Entire neighborhoods in New Orleans, Biloxi, and Gulfport were erased from the map. Homes that had stood for generations were reduced to slabs of concrete. And inside some of those homes, in safes that were advertised as fireproof and waterproof, people had stored gold, silver, cash, and irreplaceable documents. Many of those safes were never found. They were swept away by floodwaters, buried under debris, or carried miles from their original location. Some were found months later, damaged beyond recognition, their contents corroded or missing. Home safes are tested in controlled conditions. They are not tested against a 28-foot storm surge moving at highway speed. And this pattern repeated. In November 2018, the Camp Fire in Paradise, California, burned over 18,000 structures. It was the deadliest wildfire in California's history. Temperatures in the fire zone exceeded 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit in some areas. Gold melts at 1,948 degrees Fahrenheit. Reports emerged afterward of homeowners who had stored gold coins and small bars in home safes, only to find the safes destroyed and the gold melted into unrecognizable lumps, fused with the remains of the safe itself. The gold was not gone in the atomic sense. It was still gold, but it was no longer in the form of recognizable, sellable coins or bars. Refining it back into usable form cost thousands of dollars, sometimes more than the gold was worth, especially for smaller holdings. Then consider earthquakes. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in Japan killed nearly 20,000 people and caused over $200 billion in damage. In the aftermath, Japanese authorities reported that thousands of home safes were found washed up along the coast, some as far as several miles inland. Over 5,700 safes were recovered in Miyagi Prefecture alone. Many contained cash, gold, and personal documents. Some were returned to their owners. Many were not, because the owners were dead, displaced, or could not prove ownership. The safes had no names on them. The gold inside had no serial numbers. There was no registry, no trail. Natural. Disasters do not negotiate. They do not care about your preparations. A home safe bolted to a concrete floor is a permanent fixture right up until the moment the floor is no longer there. The illusion of security is perhaps the most dangerous thing of all, because it stops people from making backup plans. Most people will never know what you now know. Most people will keep trusting systems they do not understand. If you are still here, you are not most people. Hit subscribe, because the next section is the part this channel was made for, the part they never put in textbooks. Now observe what all of these cases have in common. A retired engineer in Houston, families in India, homeowners along the Gulf Coast, survivors in Paradise, California, coastal residents in Tohoku, Japan, a couple in suburban Melbourne, a businessman in Naples. Different countries, different decades, different cultures, but the same underlying mechanism every single time. The mechanism is this. Gold stored at home concentrates all risk into a single geographic point. Everything, the asset, the security system, the documentation, the owner, all of it sits in one place. And that one place is vulnerable to every local threat imaginable. Burglary, fire, flood, earthquake, government raid, domestic dispute, even a simple plumbing leak that goes unnoticed for weeks. Professional asset storage, whether at a bank, a private vault, or an allocated storage facility, distributes risk. It separates the asset from the owner's physical location. It adds layers of security, insurance, documentation, and legal protection that a home environment simply cannot replicate. But home storage collapses all of those layers into one. It is like putting all your eggs in one basket and then carrying that basket through a minefield. The feeling of control is real. The actual control is not. And this is the cruel trick of home gold storage. It feels like the safest option, precisely because it is the most tangible. You can touch it, you can see it, you can hold it in your hand and feel its weight. That physical reassurance triggers something deep in the human brain. It feels safer than a number on a screen or a certificate in a filing cabinet, but feelings and facts are not the same thing. History is littered with people who felt safe right up until the moment they were not. And this is where history gets uncomfortable, because the people who suffer most from the dangers of home gold storage are not the wealthy. They are the middle class, the careful savers, the cautious planners, the people who spent years, sometimes decades, slowly accumulating gold as a financial safety net. Wealthy individuals typically use private vaulting services, allocated storage in jurisdictions like Switzerland, Singapore, or New Zealand, and sophisticated insurance policies. They have lawyers, estate planners, and security consultants. When a wealthy person buys gold, it goes into a system designed to protect it. When a middle-class person buys gold, it often goes into a closet safe from a hardware store. The insurance gap alone is staggering. Most standard homeowners insurance policies in the United States cover theft of precious metals and coins up to a maximum of between $1,000 and $5,000 depending on the policy. That limit is often buried in sublimits within the personal property section. The average home gold holder in the United States, based on survey data from the World Gold Council and industry estimates from dealers like APMEX and JM Bullion, holds between $10,000 and $50,000 in physical gold. That means the vast majority of home gold is uninsured or dramatically underinsured. You can buy additional coverage called a rider or a floater, but it requires a current appraisal, a detailed inventory with photographs and serial numbers, and it increases your premium. Most people do not do this. They assume they are covered. They are not. And then there are the hidden costs that nobody mentions. Home gold storage requires a quality safe, which can cost anywhere from $500 to $5,000 for a model that offers meaningful protection. It requires installation, ideally bolted to concrete, which may cost several $100s more. It requires ongoing secrecy, which means limiting who knows, controlling information flow, and being careful about everything from package deliveries to social media posts. It requires a plan for what happens if you die or become incapacitated. If your family does not know where the gold is or cannot access the safe, the gold may sit undiscovered for years or be lost entirely during estate settlement. In contrast, allocated vault storage typically costs between 0.5% and 1% of the gold's value per year. For a $50,000 holding, that is $250 to $500 annually. That fee includes insurance, security, documentation, audit trails, and often the ability to sell or transfer the gold electronically without ever touching it. The math is not even close, but the feeling of holding your own gold is powerful, and feelings, not math, drive most financial decisions. The question is not whether this pattern will repeat. History has already answered that. The only question is whether you will see it before it sees you. If this channel helps you think differently about the world you live in, subscribe. It costs nothing. And it might change everything. So what did the people who navigated these risks successfully actually do? The historical record shows that those who came through periods of financial instability, government overreach, and personal security threats with their gold holdings intact largely shared three characteristics. First, they diversified storage locations. They did not keep all their gold in one place. Some kept a small amount at home for immediate access, perhaps 5 to 10% of their total holding. The rest was stored in allocated vaults, often in more than one jurisdiction. During the Argentine economic crisis of 2001, when the government froze bank accounts in a policy known as the Corralito, citizens who had moved assets to Uruguayan banks or vaults beforehand maintained access to their wealth. Those who had everything in Argentine banks or in their homes during a period of skyrocketing crime lost access or lost the assets entirely. Second, they maintained meticulous documentation. Every coin had a photograph. Every bar had a serial number recorded in multiple locations. Purchase receipts were stored separately from the gold itself, often with an attorney or in a cloud-based encrypted system. This documentation served triple duty. It proved ownership in case of theft, supported insurance claims, and established provenance, which means the history of where the gold came from for tax and legal purposes. Third, they controlled information ruthlessly. The survivors of every major economic disruption shared one habit above all others. They did not talk about what they owned. Not to friends, not to extended family, not on social media, not to neighbors. The retired engineer in Houston lost his gold because information leaked through casual conversation. The businessman in Naples lost his because he was known in his community as a gold holder. In the gold seizure raids in India, families who kept quiet and held amounts below the threshold attracted no attention. Those who boasted or displayed gold jewelry at social events became targets. Information security is not a technology problem. It is a behavior problem, and it is the single cheapest, most effective form of protection available to anyone who holds physical gold. It costs nothing. It requires only discipline, and it is the one thing most home gold holders fail to do. Let me bring you back to where we started. Our 62-year-old retired engineer in Houston. After the burglary, after the insurance disappointment, after the police investigation that led nowhere, he sat in his living room and stared at the gouges in his hardwood floor where the safe had been dragged out. 15 years of savings, 47 coins, gone in 20 minutes. He did not stop believing in gold. He still believed it was a sound store of value. He still believed the financial system carried risks that most people ignored. But he changed how he held it. He opened an allocated storage account with a private vaulting company. He kept 3 coins at home, roughly $7,000 worth, in a well-hidden location that was not a safe. Everything else went into insured, audited, professionally secured storage. He started keeping digital copies of all purchase records in an encrypted file. He told his wife, his attorney, and no one else. He did what history had been screaming at him to do all along. He separated the idea of owning gold from the idea of holding gold. Because those are two very different things. Owning gold is a financial decision. Holding gold at home is a security decision. And most people make the second decision without ever truly thinking about the risks, because the weight of a gold coin in your hand feels like certainty. But certainty is not the same as safety. The floor gave way, and the cracks had been spreading for years in the casual conversations, in the insufficient insurance, in the hardware store safe bolted to a wooden subfloor, in the assumption that secrecy would hold forever in a world where information moves faster than intention. The pattern is clear. The history is documented. The mechanism is always the same. Concentration of value plus concentration of risk plus imperfect information security equals loss. It has happened in the United States. It has happened in India. It has happened in Australia, Italy, Japan, and Argentina. It will happen again. The question for anyone who holds gold at home is not whether they trust the system. It is whether they have honestly examined the system they have built inside their own walls. This is historical and educational analysis. It is not financial advice. Every individual situation is different. Please consult a qualified professional before making any financial decision. This video is not for everyone. Most people will dismiss it. But if one person in your life needs to hear this, share it with them. Not because it will change the world, because it might change their world. Subscribe for more. And I will see you in the next one.